What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Call-Ins, and we do this show every Monday now at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time, unless I'm doing the commentary for TCH Live, but we'll lead into the TCH Live big game if you want to get on the show. You can shoot me an email, bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com, and this live stream will go up unlisted after the fact, but you can always listen to it on in a podcast format over on crushlivepoker.com called Crush Live Call-Ins. And of course, we take the best hands and we put them in a graphical video. And those come out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So do me a favor, like the channel, subscribe, but you're not missing anything by not watching the live stream. I'll give you a little live hack, actually, as I put up the event for the live stream. If you catch it in your timeline or in your subscriber feed on YouTube, you can actually save the link and you can watch it after the fact because it's not private, it's just unlisted. So again, if you want to get on the show, shoot me an email over at bart@crushlivepoker.com. We got 4 calls here today. So let's start off here. And like I said, I'll be checking out the live chat. What's up, Bart? Keep doing a great job, MAGA. Thank you, Razor Sharp. I've talked quite extensively about politics betting. And if you listen to Nate Silver over on 538, or it's actually a good podcast to listen to, he's actually, I would say he's probably a little bit over it. He's over the flack that he gets on social media, puts together a model saying, you know, he thinks that Biden might beat Trump X amount of times. Right now, it's like 88 out of 100. And for the most part, the general public, and I'm even surprised with poker players, don't understand what that means, basically. Like, it doesn't really matter what the result is as long as the model is accurate. It's like if you're going to put your money in with aces against ace king, you're going to win 91 out of 100 times. It doesn't really matter what the result is, right? So that's why I feel like politics betting is just such a huge EV play. It doesn't matter what your actual, you know, political views are, who you're going to vote for, but, you know, a lot of people who play poker, you know, want to play, you know, gamble with an edge. And politics betting is a gigantic edge. It's actually better than I've seen it since 2016. So that's my take. I have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 figures on the election across many different wagers. So anyways, all right, let's get into it here. 631 is going to lead us off. And this is Doug. Hello, Doug. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Bart? I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Got a hand for us, Doug?
Yeah, so this past Thursday, I was at MGM National Harbor playing 510, and I encountered a unique situation in a hand I wanted to run past you.
Okay, so 510, no limit.
So we're 7-handed. They have plexiglass there. We're 1900 effective.
Okay, 1900 effective. Okay, yep.
In this specific hand, I'm in the big blind. Action folds around to the button, and when action has folded around to the button and I'm in the big blind and there's no action in front of the button is raised 100% of the time, which he does here. He bumps it up from 10 to 35, standard raise size.
Mm-hmm.
Small blind folds. I look down and I have red aces. So knowing how wide this player is, I make a small 3-bet and I bump it up to 100.
Okay. 3 bets to 100. So talk about this for a little bit. And again, this might be a live exploit in the sense with specifically with aces. I mean, in general, at this stack depth, you would want to go larger from out of position. However, when I'm dealing with what I deem to be a very weak player, so if I'm usually playing against the $5 at the $5 blind level, I'm not talking about Texas $5 blind, but like an LA 5-5 game or something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I actually raise smaller to keep them in because I feel like maybe a little bit of lost value pre-flop from not making it larger will actually compound post-flop when they hit top pair and never be able to fold.
Yeah.
So specifically with aces, sometimes I will exploitably size down. So I don't hate it. And if he's opening 100%, he shouldn't be defending, anywhere near that amount, right? I mean, it's you're
Yeah.
making it 3x. I mean, maybe he defends with. It's hard to quantify because you look at this and it's like in a normal situation, if you were opening a certain position, say with 20% of your hand, say it got folded to like low jack or something, and then somebody 3-bet, maybe you defend to a 3x 3-bet with like 30 or 40% of your opening range, which would really only represent 8 or 9% of hands. If he does that, he's still going to be super wide because he's going to have 40% of total hands if you're saying he's 100% VPIP. Just for a little bit of contextual background. So key calls on the button?
Yeah. So he calls.
Mm-hmm.
Flop comes king of spades, king of clubs, and 7 of hearts.
King of spades, king of clubs, 7 of hearts. By the way, what's kind of interesting here is that even if you were looking at optimal pre-flop solutions and defends, I bet king jack off plus is defended here from the button. So some people might look at, oh, we block ace king, he's not calling with king queen off. Well, actually, that's not the case in a late versus big blind scenario. Now, if you were like, if there was a UTG opener and then there was a flat call and then you 3-bet from the big blind, yeah, I wouldn't expect, he's not supposed to have king queen off, right? His king X is going to consist of ace king off and king queen suited, king jack suited, but here he could. So he actually has some kings here too. So what did you do here?
Yeah, so I took a passive approach knowing how aggressive he was. I checked. He bets 75, which is a relatively small bet compared to the size of the pot. And then I call.
So button bets 75, hero calls, and the pot was 200 on the flop. Why did you check, just out of curiosity?
I guess I didn't want him to fold junk. I guess that was the primary reason. If he was defending with, I don't know, queen jack or ace 5, and I just bet out at him, he would fold instantly. I was trying to play at him in his aggression, and I wanted him to kind of be the aggressor, considering I felt I still had a good hand.
So ideally, you would have liked to have this have gone check, check, and then maybe he catches up to something on the turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or he's just a blindless bluffer or something. He could just bluff at it with nothing, basically. What's interesting here, and again, it doesn't sound like this guy is at this level, but how often is the big blind going to 3-bet a button open and then check fold on this flop? I mean, it can't be that often, right? Because, I mean, even with ace highs, like ace 10, ace jack, I just don't see folding here. Any pair, right? The suited broadways, you've got a rainbow board, so the suited broadways are going to have, most of them are going to have, say, 3 to a straight, 3 to a flush. I mean, you could have, the one that doesn't, but you would still think that you'd start a bet, though, as the 3-better on this board, even if you had, say, for example, jack 10 of diamonds here. So it's interesting that people would stab here, because I just don't see the big blind check folding all that much, as you probably should not. But anyways, okay, so you check call 75. All right, let's move to the turn.
Yeah, so the turn comes the 7 of diamonds, so 2 kings, 2 sevens out there, and then I continue with my passive play. I check to him, and then he bets out 250, and I end up tanking a little bit, but then making the call.
So he bets 250 into 350, total rainbow board, king, king, 7, 7. That's a really odd sizing. The reason why that's odd sizing is just because, if he was betting a 7 on the flop, which is possible, is he really going to bomb 250 now? Like, if you have a 7, it's really an in-between type of hand, right? What is there really to protect against here, unless you're slow playing king? And then I tend to find it unlikely that he would be taking this sizing here with top full house. So, I mean, I definitely think that you've got the best hand here a fair, amount of the time. It's interesting at the end on rivers. Like, and then the other thing though too is like, you're like, well, what hands at the end are going to play on this board that might just check back? pairs of like eights through queens if those aren't 4-bet off. But is he still taking the sizing on the turn? I mean, and then is he trying to bet you off at ace high? I mean, it's probably going to go check a fair amount, but because you've played the hand this way, which I don't think is bad by any means, I think you're probably just going to be forced to go check call. But okay, so you call, right? Button bet's 250, you call.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so now it's 850.
So river comes the king of clubs. So there are 3 kings out there and 2 sevens. Still a rainbow board.
What is it? King of
full house.
It's king of
clubs. Or I'm sorry, not clubs. King of hearts.
King of hearts. Okay, so the final board again for the podcast people. You 3-bet out of the big blind against a button open, kind of small. He calls. The board comes out king 7 rainbow. You check call 75. Pot's 350. Turn is a 7, so it's king 7. You check call 250, which I think is an odd sizing. So the pot's 850. And now the river is the king of hearts. By the way, I see some people in live chat saying I just fold on the turn. How can you fold the turn? How can you fold the turn? I don't know if that ever crossed your mind, but it's never a fold on the turn.
I didn't really consider it. I thought maybe I'm beat, but I also am not really representing my actual hand that well. He may be blasting away with 8s, 9s, 10s, something in that range.
Right.
So, I didn't really strongly consider it.
So let's look at this board. I like this hand because it's kind of interesting too, in the sense that, again, yes. So what are the hands that beat you here? 4 7s, right? It's just quads, right? Quad kings or quad 7s, right? Because your hand's going to play kings full aces. So the only hands that beat you here are 4 7s and 4 kings. And again, I will go back to the same thing where I would say on the turn, I just, someone's going to be betting like that with 4 7s or kings full as top full house on the turn. I mean, I guess it's possible. What's interesting here now is that he might just check it back because the board plays. So even though it's kind of strange, I wonder if we can develop a leading range here. And again, the theory would be, well, because you beat a 7 now too, right? A single 7 for a full house, which you didn't beat. So, it's like one of these things where because if you check, he's just going to play the board and he might think, well, I don't need to bluff at it. Maybe I'll just chop here with ace high. But if you bet, he might call. Like if you were to bet 200 or 250 or something like that, you know what I mean? To like play the board. It's kind of an interesting spot because the board plays. I was going to say like 99 out of 100 times you're going to check call at the end on the river the way you played this one out. But now with the king coming at the end and the fact that we don't think he has really that many kings the way that he's played this hand, it's kind of interesting. What did you do?
Yeah, so, I mean, that was a big reason for my call is I didn't really know how to play this situation here. I feel like I misrepresented my hand. I think he thinks I'm weaker than I actually am. So do I quit playing passive and just bet out into him, or do I actually just check and let him do the work? I tend
to want to bet here. And here's the thing too. And the thing is that I know it sounds crazy, but you're somewhat protected by the fact that, then people are like, well, what if he jams? What if he jams? I think you're somewhat protected by the fact that this is similar to like a 4 flush board. And what I mean by a 4 flush board that's not paired. So you're not going to see crazy multiple bets like as bluffs on a 4 flush board that's not paired because anyone can have the ace, right? It's totally feasible.
Correct.
There's so many nut combos. Here, there's not quite as many, but anybody can have a king. So if you lead out here, I just think that the bluffing frequency goes way, way down. Like, I just don't think you're getting bluffed by a non-king here all that much.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you lead out on a 4 flush board, you're not going to get bluffed not by the ace of spades and definitely not for a jam all in. So I think you're somewhat protected by that. And again, I still think maybe people are saying jam, jam, jam. I don't know if I'm jamming here because the guy there's 1,400 left, right? I mean, there's 1,500 left. If you jam, I don't know if he's going to call to play the board. And I don't know if he's taking sizing with queens through 8s here on the turn. So that's why I actually might like a bet of like 250 to 300 to get called to play the board here too.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it kind of looks like a blocker bet. Pairs that
yeah,
are higher than sevens would probably call that off as well.
yeah.
So,
Um, what did you do?
so I continued with my passive approach. I checked at him, and he bet out 650, which was a pretty sizable bet, which kind of I didn't necessarily like. And then it came to another tough decision. Do I flat? Can I possibly fold, thinking he has
No, you can
wads here,
never fold. No, you can never fold.
or,
I just
or
don't think
can
so because again, like I mean, he might even think that. I mean, it's unlikely that he thinks he's value betting or he thinks you're getting off of a chop. But I'm never ever folding when I only lose to two combos of quads. I think it's probably pretty extreme where you probably shouldn't raise here because if you check raise at the end, I mean, the guy's got to be a real drooler to be able to call with worse. Although going back to old Zebo theorem, which is an old theorem back from like the mid 2000s, which is nobody ever folds a full house. And I'm not talking about a full house on board, but if you were to have like tens or jacks here, if you
yeah,
you know if it wasn't for the turn sizing, it wouldn't be such a spot where I could maybe sometimes get on board with doing something like that because, if it went turn, check, check or something like that. But when he bets 250, it's just really weird. I just don't know if he's doing that with any eights, nines, ten. I just call and expect to be good here like a lot. Once in a while, you're going to lose to a king, but I'm not sure if I'm going to raise here.
yeah. So I end up making the crying call here, just
Uh-huh.
flicking in the chips, and he flips over two diamonds. So he had the six of diamonds, and he also had the king of diamonds.
King six of diamonds for quads. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think you're going to lose some of the time, but you're never, ever thinking about folding the way that this has been played out. Um, that turn sizing is kind of interesting. I mean, if he thinks, newer school poker, like if somebody thinks that someone's going to defend the turn with ace high, then I guess they could size up. Yeah, I mean, I think that the river is a clear call. I think what you do is very, very interesting though too, because if you bet like 300 to 400 and then he jams on you, are you gonna be able? What are you gonna do? In that spot.
Yeah, it's just tough. Yeah, it's a hard situation, and I think even my small three bet sizing up front kind of enabled him to get himself into this position. I raised 125, 150 pre, probably fold king six, and I would have not lost $1,000 here.
Yeah. By the way, too, some people are like, "Oh, he defends to king six suited." Again, if I know off the top of my head from doing top section years ago that like king jack off to a small three bet button versus big blind heads up as a defend, I would probably think that king six of diamonds is pretty close. It might be king seven suited plus as a defend tier to 3x. Definitely defending it in the ante game. It's actually not as crazy as people in the live chat are thinking. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Clark. Appreciate it.
All right, let's go to the next caller here. And this is Chris. Hello, Chris. How you doing? Chris?
Hey, Bart. How you doing? I have a Tampa Hard Rock 2.5 1,000 cap 7-handed.
Recently?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, do they have plexiglass in Florida?
Yeah, they had the plexiglass 7-handed.
7-handed Tampa Hard Rock, which I have not been to Tampa Hard. Actually, never been to Tampa. I've been to Jacksonville.
So now usually the 2.5 game I'm used to is a 500 cap, and this is a 1,000 cap, so it's a little bigger than I'm used to playing in.
Okay.
So
yep.
So Dylan is unknown in hijack. He's late 20s, clean cut looking. He has about 2,400. I have him covered. My table just broke, so I moved to this table. So no idea who this guy is. So mid position player limps, and Dylan is in the hijack and makes it 25. Okay. I'm on the button with ace of spades, ace of hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go with a big raise. I went to 125.
Okay.
Just because I had a ton of chips and I wanted to maybe look like I was just like going to go crazy and run the table over, even though that's probably not what he was thinking. So
I don't think it's that crazy with a limper in there. You're also deep too. And
yeah, and I was drinking. He might have saw that. I was having a good time. So
okay, he's trying to give off the image. Yeah.
yeah. So I thought it would look good, but all right. So the limper folds villain called.
Okay.
Okay, so the flop comes 3 of clubs, 4 of hearts, 5 of clubs. So he checks. I bet $80.
Hold on one second. 3 of clubs, 4 of hearts, 5 of clubs.
Yes, sir.
All right. So hijack calls. You're like at 260-ish, something like that. 3 of clubs, 4 of hearts, 5 of clubs. Pot's right around 260. Okay, he checks.
He checks. I bet 80, which was kind of small. I like the board. I mean, I thought in my mind at the time, I thought I'm getting called by all over pairs. You know, I was kind of really focused on him having an overpair, which maybe in this game is a little off. You know, with I think the player pool here is a lot better than where I play, so guys will be calling a lot wider than I'm thinking at the time.
I mean, it's just a little bit unfortunate for you that you have 2 of the aces, because usually what you'll see, especially nowadays, is like, for example, if you had 2 kings, people are always going to take off on a wheel board. A wheel board is being 3 cards below a 5, right? And 2 over cards. So like ace jack, ace queen, ace king, right? Is going to be 2 over cards and a straight draw on a wheel board. So obviously he could have that, but I'm just saying you have 2 aces, right, in your hand. So you bet 80.
So I bet 80.
Mm-hmm.
He calls.
Okay.
So the turn comes 6 of clubs.
Pot's 420 now, as some people probably in the audience like 420. Turn was 6 of clubs.
6 of clubs. He checks. Now this is where I got a little, I think maybe ahead of myself. I bet 325.
Hijack checks. Hero bets 325. That is, I would say, a little bit optimistic here, because so it's
I'm thinking. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's the 3rd club and a 1-liner, right, out there. 3, 4, 5, 6 with 3 clubs.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's, even if it wasn't a flushing card, I think that you're pretty much going to be forced here to check a lot, just based upon this card. Yeah, it's just like one of these things. And, you know, one of the other things too is, of course, it's no limit, right? So, you know, you think about like pot control, like what is pot control? And pot control probably came about from pot limit games, right? Like pot control in PLO. I don't know if you play any PLO caller, because you can only bet pot. So if you don't put a bet in on the turn, the guy can only bet pot. Of course, that goes out the window in no limit, but the practical application of that is that not a lot of live players have a lot of overbetting in their thing, so you can pot control here with a check. I just think that you run out of a lot of value, and you know.
Yeah, I was worried about giving a free card with a club, not having a club, and I was thinking I was getting called by an overpair. That was basically my thought, and I just didn't think sevens, or I just didn't think he had this board. So,
but is he calling? Is he calling with?
Stuck on overpairs.
So you think you're trying to get value from like 10s, jacks with the club?
Yeah, I was trying to make him pay with jacks or 10s with a club, but I look back now and think it was just a check, pot control, like you're saying.
Well, it's just, I mean, like I said, I mean, a lot of money in live poker is won through, getting value and thin value bets, but you do have to have respect for the board. And there are times when you basically have run out of a lot of value, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're getting, a lot of hand. I mean, the easiest thing in No Limit that I tell sort of new players, or it's one of the first things that I'll tell if somebody hires me to teach somebody that's brand new to poker, that's trying to get serious with No Limit. I'm like, in big bet poker, you don't want to get into a situation where you take a hand and you either bet or so large that everything that's weaker than your hand folds and only better continues on. It's way ahead, way behind. It's super basic No Limit. Now, newer school No Limit, there is now times to what I like to call volume bet. Like we look at like, why do we bet, right? For a bluff, for value, protection. And now this sort of newer school thing where we're betting our range, we're volume betting. That's the fourth thing. And you can actually look at this over on Crush Live Poker in our Fast Track series. We have a revisited episode of Way Ahead, Way Behind where I go over this, and our former coach Keeley, who did Fast Track, he shows mathematically how it's usually on the flop. There are certain situations where by betting 100% of your range, you will show a higher expectation, because a lot of times you're gonna see a turn in a river. You cannot put a turn bet in and get to a river. So even if you bet like sevens in a 3-bet pot on Ace King 3, that will actually show more of return than checking it back and facing a bet on turn. I mean, that's the basic thing here. But I mean, once you get to the turn, though, that's usually a flop bet. Once you get to the turn, this is a little bit way ahead, way behind. You can obviously have protection bets on the turn, but you don't. I mean, you could make a case that you're making a protection bet against the club, but I just think that you've run out of value here. So, anyways, you bet 325.
Gotcha. So I bet 325. He calls. I got the pot at 1070.
Okay.
The river comes the deuce of diamonds.
Oh, so now there's a straight on board. 6,
Yeah,
5,
now-
4, 3 deuce. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So now the villain leads into me for 650.
Well, here's the thing. I think I might have misread your email, caller. What was your name
Okay.
again? Chris. Chris, right?
Chris, yep.
Because I think I thought that there was no third flush card on the turn. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like if and we can look at this, like say the turn was the 6 of diamonds, right? And now the river's a deuce, and now the straight plays on board and he leads for 650.
Yes.
Can we call for a chop? Right? So just pretend for a second that the 6 is not a club. Okay. So he's betting 650 into 1070. How much are you, like, what are your pot odds in this situation?
30%.
Well,
2 to
no,
1.
no, because remember, you have to lay a price. You have to lay a price when you're calling for a chop, right? Like, I mean, a normal situation, if you bet 650 into 1070, right, the pot would be right around 1720, 650 for you to call. You'd be getting almost 3 to 1. But here, and I know this from a lot of split pot play too, because I play high-low games, you're calling 650 to win half of the pot, not including his bet. You're calling 650 to win 535. You have to lay a price. Like, you have to be
Okay.
good here more than 50% of the time to call. Now, with the possibility of a flush being out here, I don't think this is a call. If the turn was not a club, I probably would call. I think I
Okay.
would call, because I think if any type of player is sort of capable or thinking about it, it's 7x is fairly unlikely. I just don't see us folding here if there's no club out there getting a price of about 50%. I mean, is my view. I think with the flush out there, I
You
think
know
you're
what it
gonna
is?
let it go.
I like to bluff. I like to bluff in these spots, and I assume other people are doing it. But
Yeah.
if I think I'm chopping a pot, I'll try to bluff at it with a big bet.
Some people in the chat are saying, would you ever bluff here with the ace of clubs? If you had aces with the ace of clubs, could this be a bluff bet? Yeah, certainly. But I wouldn't do it without the ace of clubs.
Yeah. I got
yeah,
you.
yeah. So what ended up happening?
Anyway, I ended up calling. He had King Jack of clubs.
King Jack of club. That's why I thought that,
Yeah.
and that doesn't surprise me. But again, I think what's interesting here is that this is a rare scenario where in Hold'em you're laying a price because you're calling for a chop, which, like I said, in high-low games I do all the time. You have to figure out laying a price. So if it was an offsuit 6, I think I would find a call here. 650 for 535, but not with the flush out there. I just think there's too many flushes in his range. So,
Yeah, and if it doesn't come a deuce on the river, I'm pretty sure I'll fold easily to his bet into me on the river.
it would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, like if the river was like, if the river was like, actually, it probably doesn't even matter that much, right? Like if the river was like an offsuit queen and he led the river here, I think I'd probably still fold, to be honest with you, with the flush out there. You know what I mean? So,
No, I got you.
anyways, Chris, thanks for the call. Appreciate
All
it.
right, thanks, bud.
All right. Let's go to the Arizona area, and this is who is this? 480. Is this John?
This is John.
Oh, okay.
John.
I'm sorry. I put your number out. I thought you were calling from
Yeah.
310. Did you say you're from 310? LA area?
Yeah, no, Arizona.
Oh, okay. All right, John, you got a hand for
Yeah.
us?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Arizona. So, just a little background on me. I'm a rec player, and so I'm really not really the greatest, like with GTO and that. So, you guys are going to be more technical than me. But this hand is at Bellagio, and I got in a 2040 no limit uncapped.
So let me ask you a question, John David, right?
Yeah.
Or John, okay?
Yeah.
So some people
yeah.
now I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay, so I know right away some people are going to say this guy wasn't playing 2040, but you're saying that you're on a trip to Vegas, you're sort of new. I assume that you probably somewhat, you're probably financially comfortable, but you sometimes will play in large
Right.
games.
Yeah.
Is that pretty
Occasionally,
accurate?
yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah, it's pretty. Usually, I'm playing 1-3 or 2-5, but I'm a gambler, so I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to get in a bigger game. Or,
okay.
yeah. So that's so the game is it's 2040, no limit, uncapped. It's the first time I played this level. So I really don't know how it's played. How these guys play. So
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm playing all night long. I got aces on the button. It's a straddle pot, so there's 20, 40, 80,
Okay.
and then middle position makes it or tries to limp in it for 80. I make it 240 to go.
So how deep are you guys, by the way?
I got about 18.9 to start the hand.
18,900. Okay. So
Yeah.
So it's about 250 big blinds with the straddle. What's interesting here is you say MP1 limps. Boy, that's if somebody said that they were in a Bellagio 2040 game, I don't know what time this was or whatever. Although I will tell you, John, that I've actually heard, and this is recently. Did you play this hand recently?
It's back in August.
Oh, back in, yeah, okay. So post COVID, what I've heard from a lot of Crush Live Poker subscribers, which might play into this, is that the games are really just off the hook right now in poker everywhere. Like you don't have Euros. It's a lot of recreational players. But what I was going to say is that, just to see a limp from MP1 at 2040-80 is like astounding at this level, but it might be a reflection of the fact that there's a lot of just recreational players playing. So
it was, and here I was playing the game too.
Yeah.
Right.
So aces to 240, right? On the button.
Right. So I make it 240.
Okay.
All right. Small blind folds. Big blind 3 bets me to 1,500.
1,500. Okay.
1,500.
Yep.
Middle. Then the limper folds, and then it's back to me. I 4-bet to 3,500.
Okay, so you make a pretty small. I mean, that's fine. I think that's fine with position. If he calls, the pot's going to be like 7,000, and you're going to have, 16,000 left. You have 2 pot-sized bets left, and I know you said that this is probably your first time playing at this level, but you can literally lop off the zeros and just be like, well, if I was playing in my regular 2-5 game, and I put a 4-bet in, and now I've got, 1,600. I've got. The pot's like 500 and I have 1,000 left. I mean, poker's poker. It doesn't matter how much money is there. You're going to have 2 pot-sized bets left. So, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to scare him off.
Sure.
I didn't want to get too crazy and have him fold. So he, he thinks about it for just a few seconds, calls, makes a call. And then, we go to the flop.
Okay.
And, flop is A53 rainbow. It's like the perfect flop I could dream about. Having aces. So earlier in the game, I made a big bluff.
Okay.
In the same kind of line. I took the same kind of line. I 3x the pot. I threw in like 17,000 in a $5,000 pot, and then I showed the bluff. The opponent folds, and so I did the same exact thing here. I had about a little over 15,000 left.
Okay.
I just bombed it, and
so he checked, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Here, big blind checked.
Yep.
And then I just bombed it. 15.4. I think I had left.
So here's the thing that I would say about this. This is obviously a great spot for you. Now, I don't know if you knew anything about the big blind here. What's interesting here is that I would say you don't obviously need to do that because you can sort of just get all the money in through small betting and basically force him to call with a lot of weaker hands. Again, this is an interesting scenario when, just out of curiosity, and I'm just saying I keep bringing this into play here, I wonder what a computer would say here in a spot like this. So if you put yourself in your opponent's spot, right? What is the opponent supposed to call with when facing a 2x all in on 8-5-3? Is he supposed to call with all over pairs? It is. I'm just talking out loud here because it's a button versus, it's a button versus sort of big blind spot.
Right.
Your bet is 2x the size of the pot. So
Uh-huh.
if you were to bet the size of the pot all in, he would need to call with the top 50% of hands. If you're betting 2x, the theory is that he only needs to, I think, call with the top 33, it's either 33 or 40% of hands that he gets here with. I don't know what kind of player that was in the big blind. I'm just, like I said, I don't want to overcomplicate things. I just think with you, the properties of your hand and the fact that like you need no protection whatsoever, you could start with a really small bet, like 2,000, and you'd easily get all the, you would really, really easily get all the money in because you bet 2,000. He calls, the pot's 11. You're going to have 13 left. You could just go one third all in and get it in.
Right.
I mean, my concern
And
is that you just blow somebody. You don't want like ace king, ace queen to just have to fold where they might take one off,
Mhm. Right, and that's why I was calling, because I wasn't, I thought about that. Like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I just, throw a few thousand, a few more thousand, and just get them in like that? But I wasn't, when his chances of improving his hand diminish, is he going to continue to call, right? Or is he going to?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you specifically have two
Mhm.
aces. So the primary sort of non-paired hands that are going to call here are ace highs that defend to a 3-bet. There's less of those because you have two of the aces. But, if you bet 2,000, he very well might call with any of those ace highs, especially with a backdoor flush draw, like ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, even a suited ace that he takes off with. And then he might even call with like some suited, 8-5-3. I wonder, suited broadways with a backdoor flush draw is probably a little bit of a stretch, but I just would want to reel him in, because the best thing that can happen for you here is for him to have a hand that's not that strong. You bet small on the flop, or by the way, sometimes even check it back. You could even check back this board here for deception and then have him catch up or have him start bluffing at it, basically. So, I mean, that's kind of where my thought on this. What ended up happening?
Well, he tanked for about 5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually he made the call.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he called.
Okay.
So obviously I'm happy. So I wasn't really worried about losing the hand. And yeah, so he makes a call, and then I was tired. I had been playing for about 16 hours, and then the dealer, flips a turnover. It's a 7.
Okay.
So that's good for me, right? Because I'm thinking he's got a high pair.
Sure, of course.
Kings, queens,
Yeah.
Right? So, and then he's like, "Whoa, wait, did you want to run it once or twice?" And I'm like, and I was tired, and this is a mistake I'll never make again. Is I agreed to run it twice.
Well, now wait a minute. I have to say something though, John. Whatever the answer to that decision. So what you're saying is that the turn came out and it was a 7, and then the guy said, "Do you want to run it once or twice?"
Yeah.
What's interesting about that question is that no matter what answer you give, it doesn't matter. It's not wrong. It's neutral. So I don't know what's going to happen if you said you agreed to run it twice and then you won the first one and lost the second one. But for you to say, yes, I'll run it twice, that's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. It doesn't change.
Even knowing that I'm ahead with aces.
Absolutely. Yep. It doesn't change anything about your equity. So say, for example, we'll just do this really, really easily. Say, for example, he's got queens. Okay. And, now you're at the river. So he's got like 2 outs. Okay. I'm going to round up to him. I'm going to round up, and we're going to say that you're 95% to win with 1 card to come. Okay. And I'm going to say that the pot is, say, like $40,000 total. Okay.
Okay.
So if you were to just sort of cut right then and there, and you didn't see a river card, and you say, all right, well, we're going to cut this up by like our percentages, right? You would be, I'm just going to get out the calculator here really quick here. You would be owed, basically, your pot share here in the pot is 38,000. So you'd get 38,000, he would get 2,000. All you're doing by running it twice is chopping the pot in half. So instead of one 40,000 pot, you have 2 $20,000 pots, and now you're running 95% across 2 specific boards. The reason why you run it twice is because the more times you run it, the more times the actual result will approach what you're supposed to get. So if you ran it, say, if you had the ability to run it, say 40 times, right? Chances are you would win 38 and he would win 2 with a little bit of variance. So you can run it twice, you can run it 3 times, you can run it no times. It's not a mistake. It doesn't change anything about the hand except that it will give you a more accurate result that is what your actual equity is in the hand. So you can lose. I mean, here's the thing, though. It's very extreme. Like if you only run it once, there's only 2 results, right? You are going to win 40 or you're going to win 0. So if you happen to lose, that's it. You're hugely running below EV, right? Because you're at 0 and you're supposed to be at 38. What's funny is that if you win, though, you're running ahead of expectation because you're only owed 38 out of the pot, not 40. So that's the whole thing. So he said, you want to run it twice? And you said yes?
Yeah, I said, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's run it twice. And so, I mean, it ran out, and it was all small cards. There was a queen out there I was a little worried about, but the rest was, like, favorable.
Okay.
And, yeah, so, and I showed my aces, and he just went, like, limp. I knew I won it right there. So, and he mucked his cards.
So you won both runs?
I did.
Did you ever find out what he had?
Well, I talked to him, and he said he had 10s, pocket 10s.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I mean, that's fine. I mean, obviously, I think it's kind of interesting what he's supposed to defend to it. I imagine that he has to call here even against a 2x, but just to go back to the flop, I would start with a smaller sizing here, and I'll probably put this on up as a YouTube video though, talking about a big pot and how running it more than once doesn't, really change anything. I think it's really, I mean, it's not a simple concept for people, but it's really one of the most misconstrued concepts that somehow if I'm ahead or if I'm behind, I'm going to run it, say 2 times or 3 times. Some people say, if I'm on a draw, I'm going to run it 3 times. And then also people that don't understand it, they'll get mad too. Like, I ran it twice with this guy yesterday. Let's say I was behind and I ran it twice with this guy yesterday, and now today I'm ahead and I don't run it. That guy will get mad, because he doesn't understand it's not.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It averages out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
so
you see, I didn't completely understand that either, but now I do.
Yeah. So
well,
anyways,
yeah,
thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right. Take it easy.
Bye.
All right. Let's go to CLP subscriber. Hast. What's up? Are you in Virginia or are you back in Texas?
I'm in Virginia.
Oh, okay. All right. You got a hand from, what is it, MGM or what?
No, it's a home game in the area.
Okay. Home game.
So, I played this hand last night. It's just a 1-3 game.
By the way,
I got kind of deep.
I have to say, I got in, even though I put out a tweet when I was talking about political betting, because I've actually learned a lot about odds and edges. I've spent probably 100 hours on the election. I've modeled some stuff myself, and I learned a lot about Excel macros and formulas too. But one of the things, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Virginia, one of the things that I put out was that, I got a really, really good line on some big Biden favorites, like Massachusetts, where he's up by like 38 points. Like I got in on a sports bet at only laying 1,400, which is, the equivalent. 1,400 is basically the equivalent of something happening like 95 out of 100 times. Well, if Biden wins Massachusetts, let's say 100 out of 100 times, I can actually only win 5% on that bet, where I could make another bet where something was at 50 and the market price was 60 and I had a 20% edge. I'd actually win more money on a bet like that. Like, for example, like on Ohio. But which was hard for me. I mean, I get it now. It's just kind of interesting when you look at like very, very long favorites that you only have, even if something's going to happen 100% of the time and the market's 95, your EV is only 95 on that. But I'm in on some heavy money on Virginia at some pretty good lines. Like I've got Virginia positions at like minus 850, minus 900. So what
does that mean exactly for Virginia's potential results?
For every 900 I bet, I win 100 if Biden wins Virginia, basically. And now like the odds are like at 1,600, 1,700, something like that. So anyways, all right. Home game.
Yeah, 1-3 cash game. It's a full table, and I got all the stacks listed because there's a couple different stack sizes for each person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just say the stack sizes are like the relevant people and myself.
Okay.
So there is a kind of older black guy that's kind of been splashing around, and he's not like nitty. He opens under the gun off of 1,000 to about 13.
Okay.
And I've got queens in the +1 position, and
Okay.
I go ahead and 3-bet to, and I've got 1,000 as well. So I 3-bet to 40, which is kind of small. I should have probably gone bigger.
Okay.
Because the game's been playing pretty loose, like in general. So I'm surely can get called by going to like 50 or 55,
Okay.
or even 60 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But because he didn't go like 15, so I didn't go like super large. I have black queens in the +1 position.
Okay. So you make it 40 with black queens.
Mm-hmm. MP1 to my immediate left is a straightforward, weak, passive guy, and he cold calls the 3-bet. He has like a $300 stack. He's not that relevant.
Okay.
The hijack has almost as much as us. He has like 850 about.
Okay.
And he's really loose pre. Like he just he calls in position a lot versus me. He calls 3-bets in position or out of position. He's just really loose pre and really sticky.
Okay.
So he cold calls in the hijack.
Okay.
And then the under the gun older gentleman, he calls.
So under the gun to 13, hero +1, 3-bets to 40. Under the gun's got 1,000, hero has 1,000. MP1 cold calls off a small stack of 300. Hijack at 850 also calls. So these are multiple cold calls of 3-bets. Sounds like a good game. And then UTG, and then UTG also calls.
Correct. So we go 4 ways.
Okay.
There's about 160 in the pot, and the flop comes King of Spades, Queen of Hearts, Jack of Spades.
King of Spades, Queen of Hearts, Jack of Spades. So you flop middle set.
Yeah.
Okay.
On kind of a dicey board because people's ranges are wide.
Yeah. Okay.
And then something else happens that's pretty odd. The under the gun guy goes and donks bet. He donk bets 35, less than a quarter pot.
By the way, so just for some of you people that are new to poker, I've gotten this question a couple times. Why is it called donk? So when someone says like under the gun donks, it just means leads, and it actually was an old sort of joke where anybody that would just lead out at the preflop raiser was a donk, and then poker changed where you would have leading ranges in the preflop raiser, and now almost no one has leading ranges in the especially preflop 3-better, right? So yeah, I mean, you could say under the gun donks here for 35 and a 160, which means just bets. What's interesting here is right. What's interesting here is that obviously, like you had said, depending on wide VPIP ranges, you've got a couple combinations of straights here that you lose to in the form of obviously ace 10 and 9-10, depending on how wide they are. I feel more confident about your hand though in terms of playing it against a donk lead, possibly strong, than if I were to have pocket kings. So I would rather have queen, queen, or jack, jack here and be considered raising than actually have king, king, because although there is 2 spades out there, I'm not saying that I wouldn't raise against a donk lead, but what I'm saying sometimes is people have to take into account that, you know, when somebody's leading and you cover the board with top set, what exactly are they leading? You see what I'm saying? Like, because you're blocking all the top pair. You know, it's the same thing for getting ultra value when, you know, you flop middle set and you think the guy has, you know, sort of top pair. It sounds to me like in a game like this, you know, it seems like it's a slam dunk raise with a couple spades out there. What will be interesting is if you do raise and then you get a cold call behind, is that going to represent something like?
Yeah. So that's his sizing is very obviously like kind of a weak hand sizing. So I want to I want to raise it up for sure. I just didn't know exactly how much to raise it up by, and I kind of had a plan to, because of the cold callers behind me, I decided that I should go larger because because the board, if someone has a 10, I think they're actually not going to fold for a large sizing, specifically the hijack. I don't think he would fold a flush draw or like 10 with a pair, like Jack 10, King 10, because they're just because of the way the game is playing. But
Jim, by the way, I just want to comment on here something that one of the live chatters have said, and again, I mean, he probably is joking, but I just want to sort of bring sometimes how theory is not necessarily the best approach in a given lineup. Like, for example, in this game, because Tim Dietrich said check 100 here. So what does that mean, check 100? Meaning that, like, you should check if, all your entire range on this board. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but there are certain boards where that's true.
I think it is. Right.
So
the in-position players are all going to have the nuts more than I will.
Right. But do we actually think that in the type of lineup in a 1-3 home game where we see this pre-flop action, that's going to show us the biggest return, check 100 on this board? I don't even care about if we have queen.
No, I don't think so.
I just wanted to bring that up.
I think these guys, I think the guy up front is just betting a made hand, and I want to definitely raise because I think I have the best hand right now. Now, what raise sizing would you do on this flop? The pot is 160. He's betting 35.
I mean, I don't think you have to go ape shit nuts. Obviously, the lead on the flop is usually going to represent a pair plus straight draw, like some sort of pair plus 10, or maybe like a flush draw, something like that. So I wouldn't want like a bunch of those hands to fold. I don't think that you have to go huge. And then sometimes when somebody puts in like a real, I'm not saying 35 is like a ridiculously small bet, but sometimes people get frozen by like a bet. Like, say the guy came out and bet $10. So the way I approach like a bet against like a min bet, like how I approach like a min bet is I just consider it a check. So, if he had checked to you, what would you have bet? 100, 120, something like that?
Yeah, probably like close to 2/3.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying 35 is necessarily min bet, but yeah, I would probably make it one. I don't think you can go maybe like 150 to 170, 175, maybe something like that. Sounds to me like you might have gone larger than that.
I went larger. Here, I kind of calculated pot, sort of like it was PLO, and I did. I went all the way up to 240, which is a little less than pot, than a pot size raise.
The problem here with going, even with these guys, the problem here is, again, one of these situations where, you want inferior hands, obviously, to stick around. It sounds to me like no one's ever folding two pair here, right? But of course you block some of the two pair because you've got three queens. And now you get into a spot where if you're called, here's the thing. You never want to put it in a raise where if you're called, you're scared, right? So I always say that, but that would only apply to the initial better. So say you made it 240, everybody folded and he called. If you feel good about it, when this guy bets 35, you make it 240 and he calls. If you feel good about the fact you're still ahead, then the sizing isn't terrible, right? If somebody cold calls behind you, that changes things, but that's not really relevant to what we're talking about because they haven't acted yet. I just want to, for people that are watching this, when you're making a bet or a raise, and then to that person, that first action after, not talking about the other person that hasn't acted, but like if you make a bet and your head's up and you have a value hand and you make such a large bet that when you're called, you're like, oh fuck, you've done something wrong. Same thing with raising. So if you make it 240 and it gets folded to this guy and the guy calls and you're like, oh fuck, that's not right. But if you raise and then somebody else cold calls behind, you have to be concerned, but I don't think you've done anything wrong. So you make it 240.
Yeah. Yeah, I made it 240 and the MP1 folded immediately and the hijack started tanking. He muttered some stuff about, oh, he's always got it. And then he cold called.
The hijack off of the 850 stack, right?
Yeah, off of the 850 stack.
Yeah.
And then the under the gun called as well.
the under the gun calls as well. So obviously the under the gun has, I mean, and by the way too, here again, live dynamic, like pretty much, well, first of all, the under the gun will pretty much always.
So I felt good.
Yeah.
I felt good when the under the gun called me.
Here's the reason why you will always have the under the gun beat here right now is because he will jam in a better hand than yours after it goes raise call. And also, like, in order for him to have a better hand than you, he'd have to have led with something big. Like, if he leads here with 9-10 and it goes raise call, I think he's just jamming, right? Especially if you're the pre-flop 3-better. So you always have the under the gun beat here. The question here is with the hijack. And still, though, at this level, I mean, it sounds to me like this is a large pot. Like, when it goes 35-240 and the hijack only has 850, I would tend to think more often than not, he's just going to move all in with a hand on this draw heavy of the board because the under the gun obviously has a draw, right? Like if this guy's flopped ace 10 off or 9-10, is he just going to call and let the under the gun guy come in with his nut flush draw? You know what I mean? So I actually don't feel too bad about it given the stack sizes and what's going on, you know?
Yeah. And this, with both of them calling, it sets up like, if a blank comes, then I have like what I think is an easy shove because I don't really see any other way to play the hand.
Well, you'll only have what, like a pot, less than a pot size bet left, right? You'll have about
a little less than a pot size bet because the pot's like
880,
super bloated.
Right.
Yeah.
Or no, 160 plus 720. Yeah, 880. Yeah.
There's 880 in the pot now, and the turn is the 7 of hearts, so that brings 2 flush draws onto the board. King of spades, queen of hearts, jack of spades, 7 of hearts, which is a blank. It's the kind of I don't want to see an ace or.
Sure. You don't want to see an ace. You don't want to see a 9. You don't want to see a 10. You don't want to see a spade. Right. Yeah.
So the under the gun checks, and I go ahead and rip the rest of my stack, and I cover. The hijack. He only has like 550, and I think. And the other gun we have like close to even stacks. So I'm ripping like 800 into, I'm ripping like 800 effective with like the under the gun.
Yeah. I think that
550 with the hijack.
Sure. And I think that this could get awkward with larger stacks, but when you're dealing with sort of multiple stacks here, here's my take on this is that because the guy's got 550 over there in the hijack, betting like 400 here, I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. And then once the guy calls, the other guy's going to call anyway. So I think if it's stacked up, that it's totally fine. Now, if you were deeper, you might think, well, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious though what the draws are, right? I'm just trying to, even if both, let's say you all had 800 moving to the turn, like, could you ever, would it ever be ideal to go like 400 here into 8? Now they're getting 3-1. And then if it goes call, the other guy's getting 4-1, but the draws are somewhat transparent. Also, some of their spades aren't good because you've got 3 queens too. But I think with the guy only having like 550, once you basically put him in, you might as well just put the rest in with the other guy too, right? Yeah. So you moved in?
If one folds and then the other one has like that price, it's like a bad price, right? If I bet like 400 into 800.
Well, it depends on what their draw is, right? I mean, if you bet 4 into 8, they're going to be getting 3-1. So, if they had a 15 out draw, if they had 10x of spades, like say they had, I don't know, like king 10 of spades. Okay. Can't be king 10 of spades. Cause it's king of spades out there, right? King 10 of hearts, whatever it is, right? 10x of hearts or 10x of spades. Yeah. I mean, they would have the price, right? Getting 3-1, they'd have an immediate price with a 15 out draw. I mean, you cut down on a couple of their outs, but even still. So you move in, and what happens?
The hijack starts tanking again, which is good. And he says, fuck it. He calls. And the under the gun, and he calls, so he's calling for less. He's calling for 550. The under the gun folds, and he shows ace king. So my raise on the flop was good there. We got ace king to call. We got ace king to call like a large raise on the flop.
Sure.
So the for the results, the river bricks out, and I show middle set queens, and the hijack shows pocket kings.
What? What?
Yeah.
He flat called pre with pocket kings.
He did. He cold called the
Oh my
3-bet with
God.
pocket kings.
And then he
You know,
just
and
called.
low stakes
Wow,
players
that's
do this.
re-
They don't 4-bet kings sometimes because they want to see like a non-ace high board or whatever. I
I'm
don't
just
know.
really surprised though that he didn't just jam the flop though. Right?
Yeah, it's because my action was so strong on the flop. That raise size of 240.
Yeah.
It allows them to play perfectly. You know, like it was just kind of the problem. Your raise size of like 150 or 160, 170, anything under like 190 is probably like a better raise size.
Yeah, but if you had,
but-
but if you had made it like you think that you would have got raised if you had made it 175 or something?
No, I think he still would have called. I think he would have played it the same because he's just afraid of the nuts. And I do all 3-bet hands like ace 10 suited and
Mm-hmm.
10-9 suited. So I don't know. I think I played it okay given the environment I was in. But
By the way, I think this also.
Kind
I always point this out on obviously you're a Crush Live Poker subscriber, but I point this out constantly that one of the things that you can take out of your game that's extremely easy to do pre-flop is not cold call 3-bets. And the reason why you don't want to cold call 3-bets in the field is because if the original raiser is any type of player, and you'll actually see a reflection of this on TCH Live all the time. The guys that are playing for profit will do this. It's not super advanced, because you'll have a bunch of guys on TCH Live, love to cold call 3-bets, in between. That original raiser can just 4-bet. There's so much dead money out there. But the times that I have cold called 3-bets in between as a cold call is a very, very specific time when I know that the initial raiser won't even 4-bet ace king. He'll only 4-bet like aces and kings, not recognizing the situation. Because when you look at this back to pre-flop, this guy opens, right, with ace king, you 3-bet with queen, call, and he doesn't 4-bet ace king, right? I mean, I don't know what you would have done, how common 4-betting is. Like, would you have folded pre with this guy if he 4-betted?
It depends on his 4-bet sizing. I would continue to like a normal sizing, and then I'd probably exploitively fold if he 4-bet really large.
Because I mean, it's just
because the positions, like he's aware of the positions that I'm 3-betting the tight, what should be a tight under the gun position. The thing is, like the original raiser, the older gentleman, he was kind of out to lunch, so like I could see
I
three
can
betting,
see that.
whatever,
So do you guys wear masks in this home game indoors?
No comment.
No comment. What? Yeah. Why is that? Maybe it could be. I guess it might be illegal for this thing to go. Not just besides the game.
Some people bring masks. I guess you could do it if you wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for the call, buddy. Appreciate it. Good luck. Good luck out there.
All right. See you, Bart.
All right, guys. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for us this week. Again, thank you. We got almost 300 concurrent subscribers. If you want to get on the show, you can email me, bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com. I will always read the emails. Sometimes I don't get a chance to respond to any, all of them, but I do read them, and I usually read them the weekend before the call-in show, and then I'll send like an email out on Sunday in the later half of the day saying, hey, like, are you available at this time? And that's basically, how we do it. That's how we get on the show. Again, this will go up unlisted, but as a hack, when I put the event up on YouTube, if you subscribe to Crush Live Poker, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you subscribe to Crush Live Poker and you see the event come up a couple of days ago, you can actually save that link. You can go in there and click share, and you can watch it after the fact because it's not private. It's just unlisted. If you want to listen to the show as a podcast, that's one of our podcasts over on CrushLivePoker.com. Crush Live Collins. We've been doing it since 2015 or 14, and then I started doing them, put them up on YouTube, and then we'll take the best hands and we'll graphically display them, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays too. And we put up one today. We'll put up one on Wednesday, and we'll put up one on Friday. So if you want to watch some cash game action too, TCH Live is coming in less than 10 minutes. In about 7 minutes, you can just type in TCH Live in the YouTube search, and they're going to be streaming their big game, their live 5-5-10 game. That was and Brad Owen was here last week. I cut up a video and put a big Brad Owen thing in the thumbnail, and the video's gone viral. It's got like 60,000 views. He had a good show. But we'll be back here same time next week, 5:45 Eastern time. I'm going to play a little bit of music. I'll stick around in the chat for a little bit, and then I want you guys, if you want to watch some live cash game action, to head over to the TCH Live channel. Thanks for keeping it real in the chat, guys, and we will see you next time.